Alright. Hello and welcome to Plugin Along, a stream dedicated to LOTRO plugins. Last time on Plugin Along, we were still plugging along at the TitanBar currencies, making it easier and to add new currencies. Instead of having to do a whole bunch of things, we would like to do optimally 0 things, or very few things. So, what we ended on last time was kind of finishing up all the different in-code stuff before we started doing UI changes. And what we're going to do today is look at what is it like to change up the UI instead of having a predetermined list, maybe everything that's in your wallet, for instance. So in the between time since last week and this week, I went ahead and wrote some code to process some LOTRO companion files to maybe give us a leg up there. As always, feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts and questions. And in the meantime, let's go ahead and put ourselves somewhere better than housing. I'm not sure where that is. I'm going to pick maybe a random milestone. Milestones. Nars Peak. Sounds great. Okay, so what we want to do is remind ourselves what we're doing. So TitanBar shows it's Nars Peak. Awesome. I'm going to just position myself close to the edge, but not too close in case I start running forward. Perfect. Okay, so what were we doing? We were looking at TitanBar, and specifically TitanBar's wallet. Now I noticed that I don't have my save files here, which are exercising the wallet completely. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our Plugin Along, and everything currency on bar, not on radar. We're going to come load these save files. And to do that, we're going to go into LOTRO Plugins Online, plugin data, and replace what's there with this. Now, this is okay to do because I've saved off all of my plugin data files elsewhere. And as a plugin developer, I regularly make backups about once a month of my plugin data files, because if I screw something up, I don't want to be worried about it. I just go back to a known good state. And that also helps because I can go back and look at older versions of save files when I'm working on upgrading. So it serves a dual purpose there. I always have some old files sitting around to play with. So we go ahead and load this in, and I'll just move those folders off to the other window in case I need to do that multiple times. And let's reload TitanBar. Now we can see all of the old currencies are there in the top row. The actual symbol for the wallet is this middle one here, and when we click it, we get this window. So what we want to do is make this better in some fashion. Ideally, just show you whatever you happen to have in your wallet. Maybe a little button that says show me everything, even if it's not in my wallet, and have you be able to arbitrarily add whatever is there. Okay, so first thing I want to do is go look at our source control and make sure that we have a clean working directory. One thing that is not clean is this deletion of something called wallet control. And what this was, I think, best I can tell, is this was an attempt to genericize the creation of a wallet item, just like we have done for ourselves. So there's a function wallet control, or a new class, perhaps, that creates a wallet in a generic way. And I think that's great. It's just not the direction we went, and I think it was confusing because I opened this file up thinking it was something useful, and it's not. So we're going to say removed old old wallet item factory file, as it was never used, as far as I can tell. How do we know it was never used? Actually, let's double check. We're going to search for wallet control, and is wallet control the generic thing I've been wanting to make? Bam, it's gone now. Now there's no wallet controls. So we're going to say removed old wallet item factor file as it was never used, and the note asking what on earth is this. Cool. Done. Awesome. So we have a clean working directory. Great. So in the in-between time, I went into some LOTRO companion data files to try and figure out, is there a way to kind of automatically get a list of items that can appear here, and what does that look like? And the answer was yes, it was possible to do that. Now, over on the other screen, I have a C# program that's just going to run in the background, and it's going to go ahead and produce some files for us. Specifically, it's going to produce one language-independent file that looks like this, and for each item ID, we have a couple of things. We have its item class. Now there's about 4 of these across all 500 or so items that can show up here, and I don't know that that's going to be really useful, but I could see adding a filter based off of that. So we went ahead and pulled that data in. The category, and again, that could be useful as well, because we'll want to show things underneath their respective category. Mythril coins go under coin, anniversary tokens go under festivals and events, and so that category is what's going on here. Festival and events, coin, landscape, and so on. Okay. And there was a flag called old, and that seemed like these have almost certainly been phased out of the game. They might not even really exist anymore, but it's always possible you could have in your wallet. So by default, I would say go ahead and produce them. Why not? It doesn't really hurt to have a few dozen old entries in here, but by default, we won't show them. Maybe there could be some sort of advanced version or I know what I'm doing button that lets you see those old ones. I don't know. I didn't actually check to see how many old things there are, but definitely not that many. Let's see. If we came in here, wallet items, and we searched old equals true, we can see 92. Okay, that's more than I was expecting. But 92 out of almost 600. So maybe 1 in 6 are old. There's also a shared flag that we can see here, and that's just whether or not it is account-wide, account shared. So Tillerian says, Bounders bounty marks might be such an old currency. Great, let's look at bounty. Bounders tokens are definitely marked as old. I don't see anything called bounty. Copper Bounders coin is not listed as old, but Bounders token is. So yes, if that's what you were talking about, Tillerian, then absolutely. And there were there's actually, I really love how good the LOTRO wiki is at documenting these things. Where are you? When you're curious what's happened over time, you can just kind of step back, and the wiki has a great archive of this. And one of them, I think it was update 5, has a unified currency thing. And so it must have been pretty wild before that. So all the various marks and tokens that appear in skirmishes and classic instances are being collapsed into marks, medallions, and seals. So if you ever wondered what life was like before that, apparently it was like this. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't actually show that. Okay, so Delirium said, didn't know the exact name, but it's for the Bounders Bounty events. Yes, absolutely. In fact, we can take this ID and go look it up somewhere. No, we don't have it in here. Okay, yeah. Yeah, Tillerian says each skirmish had different tokens. Yeah, so apparently there were Adlan campaigns, and there were Nylon campaigns, and there were, yeah, all sorts of different campaigns here. It sounds wild. Mark has found his skirmishes level 60 through 70. in solo duo and small fellowship. Fantastic. Uh, 45 through 59 in large fellowship or raids. Like, oh my goodness. Yeah, so marks, medallions, or seals now. So in our new produced file, one of the things I like to do, if you have a file that's auto-generated and will be replaced again the next time it's generated, maybe just make a note at the top of it that this is auto-generated by a tool. Maybe make a note of whose tool, what the tool was, and when it was generated. And that way, you're going to have an easier time. You might even have a warning like, don't make any changes here, they won't be saved. That's up to you. For me, that's kind of implicit in the auto-generated, but your mileage may vary. So yeah, the very first line in each of these new files here is auto-generated by cubes, that's me, TitanBar wallet items generator tool at such and such time. Awesome. And since time zones are terrible, I just went ahead and did it in UTC. So those were actually generated like 5 minutes ago. And if I regenerated it, we can see that timestamp updates, but we don't expect anything else to change. I haven't committed these to source control because I feel like as we are developing the TitanBar features, we may kind of change what we're looking for. I've already done some of that. So like the ID here, the key here, we also see that ID expressed as a hex value here. And I don't know that that's necessary, but we do want the hex value if we're going to do an item, a specific type of item control that you can do. And where you ask the game to instantiate. I'm wondering if there's a way I can show that off. There is. Let's go ahead and go to the plugin compendium and let's download Festival Buddy. Add new. Oh, Festival Buddy. It's right here at the top. We're going to add that in. Downloading, and it's done. Fantastic. So Festival Buddy, we're going to go ahead and load that in here. Has a barter window, and you can see this control right here is a way to tell Lua, hey, I want you to present an item to the user, and this can be interacted with, so you can control click it if you want to preview it. You can control right click it if you want to link it into chat. And so it's an interactable thing. And as the plugin, we can even do things like say, how many of the thing are there? So in one of these barter windows where you're getting festival items, there we go. We can even say this is going to be 5 Springfest Brew mug. And so the game knows to pluralize it. 5 Springfest Brew mugs. Neat. And so this is a neat thing that we can do, but it does require the item ID. We pass it as a string in a hex format. So we want to pass it 0x something. If you just pass the decimal value, it doesn't work. I do not think. I guess we could try that out. So having it already done seems nice. Seems like a bit of a waste of space because you could just calculate that. Like you could just format a number as a string. So could do some playing around to see which do we like better. But the rest of this, item class, category, old or shared, these values seem useful to have. You can't just calculate it on the fly. So we're probably pretty good there. There's also a list of categories. Now these correspond to in-game categories, and some of them just are not used. For instance, there's an in-game category in the data files apparently of Quest: Lothlorien and Quest: Mirkwood, before they probably thought better of it and stopped doing that. But in general, it's just easier if you're deprecating things to just stop using it, but to leave it in there as an enumeration like this. Because under the covers, that Quest Lothlorien kind of equals 2, and Quest Mirkwood kind of equals 3. So if you change things and deleted these and everything after that got a new number, like 2, 3, 4, 5, that might cause problems that just aren't worth digging around. You just stop using them and just add new ones after that. So we've gone ahead and exported the any of those that have at least one currency still in it. So there are some gaps here. So 5 is missing, 7 is missing, and that's okay. And then oh, yep, the final file here, the items by category. And this is just a way to associate each of the wallet currencies with the thing that it's actually under and in the alphabetical order for the current language. I haven't actually double checked this. So Tellurian, if you are on and play in German client, if you could double check a behavior for me. In the English client, each of the currencies is in alphabetical order underneath its category. But the categories themselves are, I don't know what the order they are. I'm not even sure they're consistent from character to character. Because on this character, it goes coin, festival and events, landscape, taxidermy, other instances, and skirmishes, and so on. But I think I've seen that in a different order on another character. So I don't know what's up with that. But underneath each of these categories, they are always in alphabetical order in the English client. And so I have assumed that that is true for the other clients as well. Assuming that is true, oops. Yeah. Okay, Tellurian says tokens seem to be in order, headers are not. Yeah, I'm not sure what's up with the headers. It's entirely possible they're in the order that you acquired them. Like, I don't know, but currency for me is last, and certainly I would have gotten some of those before Iron Garrison resource tokens, right? I don't know. So I don't know what's up with that. But we should keep in mind to ourselves as we're designing this window that if we want to be able to match what's over here, we might want to give some control over the order that's being seen, if that matters. So what this file is each sorts alphabetically by language each of the currencies. So under currency, which again, that's in English, the Embers of Enchantment, Figments of Splendor, Motes of Enchantment. That's going to be in a different order under the German one, where you should probably start with the Figments and... No. Embers? I'm going to be bad here. Anyway, so F, then P, then S. If you're underneath the Festival and Events... Dun, 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 then you'll, again, see these tokens in an alphabetical order. Now, hopefully there's no edge cases that I'm missing here, but that's an approximate ordering of or how I would expect these to be seen. And some testing with the other language clients can definitely be useful there. One of the advantages of being on my completionist character here is I do have at least one thing from every category that is in use in the game. And so that's useful as a way to double check how does this actually look on any particular language. Cool. So this file actually determines how we are displaying these things. So you find, oh, but we are missing one thing. So, which is to say, it is when you are iterating through the contents of a table in Lua, you have a couple of options. If your keys are all numbers and they start with 1 and they increment without any gaps to the final number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then you can use iPairs to iterate through it, and pretty sure it's iPairs. One of pairs or iPairs. I always have to double check. And it'll iterate through each one, 1 through n, and as soon as it finds a gap or it'll skip everything that's not a number, and it'll give you consistent ordering. Or you can just use pairs, or the other one of the two, and it'll just iterate through in what appears to a human to be a random order, and that's because we're essentially going through a hash table under the covers, and just going through the entries in there. So, probably. There's a data structure under there, and things are not stored in what looks like a human consistent ordering. As you add or remove things, the order of how you traverse it can change. So, if you want to iterate through something with gaps, like we have 6 here, then we have 8, then we have 9, then we have 10, 11, 12, and so on. These are the only categories that actually have something in them. Then you need to have some sort of lookup that tells you what order to go through here. And I think I put that at the bottom of wallet items here. We have wallet items, and then we have the, this is the actual iPairs iteratable table here. We have entries 1 through 9, no gaps, no string entries, it's all numbers, and it starts at 1, ends at n. And these tell us an order. And I based this off the order they were showing up on this character. And then I was playing around on a different character, and it looked like they were in a different order. And I said, that's a problem for later. So there's got to be something like this that tells us the order of things. But what we probably want is something that's saved in a plugin data file. Like maybe this is just an initial value saved in a plugin data file, so it can be changed by us in a configuration screen somewhere, and we can persist that out somewhere. So this is probably just going to be the default value, and it'll just match mine because that's easier for me. And then we might design something in the options that lets people change that, or at least stick it in a plugin data file somewhere so that they can change it there. But if it is per character, and I don't have any way to tell what the character's ordering is, unless it was something silly, but like based off of the number of things in there, maybe coins always first, and then no. I've definitely got more landscape than I do other things. Yeah, I don't see an obvious reason for why it's ordered the way it is. And so if a person really wanted theirs to be the same, there might be a way to do that. But it might have to be per character, which is bonkers. Okay. So we have stuff. Just checking on something. Okay, so we have some new files that have been generated. We need to import them in our somewhere. And in most plugins, and this one is no exception, we have a main file. So you'll see a lot of import statements in main, 20 of them in fact. So we need to put it somewhere reasonable, and I was scouting around, and after font metric sounds fine, but maybe before we're actually drawing the main window. So what I thought is we could go ahead and import stuff here. So there's 3 things that we need. We need the generic file. Let's see if I can't collapse some of this down. We need the generic wallet items file. Okay. So we're doing some prefixes here like appdir directory, and we have some other things. So let's make an app data d equals appdir d dot dot, and then we'll go ahead and add data dot, because this acts like a folder path, and in order to do that in import statements, we're separating with a dot instead of like a slash like you might expect in a Windows style environment, forward or backwards, depending on your preference. So make sure you end with a dot here, because the thing after this is going to be that file, the actual file. Okay, so we have an appdir, and we're going to go ahead and concatenate on a wallet items, and that's it. And well, that's a good start. Let's go ahead and reload TitanBar and make sure everything's good so far. Great. If we wanted to make sure that things were being imported, we could even add like a turbine.shell.writeline hi, and that's going to get executed as this file is loaded. So we can go ahead and reload. Hi, there we go. It doesn't really matter if I leave that or not. Next time I auto-generate those files, it goes away. Okay, so that's the first of them. And then we need a locale directory. Do we have a locale directory? Locale. We do. Cool. So we need to we need import. Oh, it'd be really nice not to have to do an if statement here. And so what I did was I named each of these endefr, and those equate to what we store in the glocale variable that we can see up here. We go ahead and get glocale from the getLanguage function, and that actually returns a number, or an enumeration really. And what we do in the code is we say, screw the enumeration, we want it to be in language codes. So if it's equal to the French value, then we go ahead and set it to FR. If it's equal to the German, we set it to DE, and otherwise we set it to EN. Cool. I don't feel like that's better than just using turbine.lang.en or whatever the actual enumeration is, but it's fine. One of my preferred is doing something more like, and let me go ahead and pull up the API here. Okay, so in Turbine, there is a language enumeration. And so what you can just do, and we can see those values there. If we go into the LOTRO wiki, it has a better, it spells out the values of those enumerations better. So if we come in here, we go into the language enumeration, and we can see French is 268435459. Cool. Same thing here, right? I'm hearing noises of something exciting is happening in football.
Own goal.
Own goal. Oh, which team? Is that why the neighbors are very quiet?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So football's a chaotic sport, and I have a lot of empathy for things that happen in the heat of the moment that you just like when you're watching in slow motion. It's like, how could you possibly do that? But when it all happens in half a second, and things are just flying at you and whatever. But yeah, own goals in championship games are not fun. Okay, so we have 5460. That's the German. Awesome. A lot of redhead in chat saying, so technically the Dutch have scored twice, but once on each side, not ideal. On the other hand, if the Dutch are the only team to score in the game, that's kind of cool. Yeah, just a moment. Okay, so we know that these are there, but we also know we can just use these things. However, typing out turbine.language.english kind of a bummer. So we can just play games. We could say en equals turbine.language.english. fr equals turbine.language.french. And de, my apologies. Let's put that alphabetical. Equals turbine.language.german. And so what that ends up looking like, if the locale equals fr, if the locale equals de, and ultimately any place that you'd be using a glocale, most of those places you could just, instead of checking if something equals the string fr, you could just say, hey, fr. But under the covers, it's a number. Number comparisons are faster than string comparisons. They're easier. They're just, yeah, it's definitely a thing you can do. However, the quote fr here, we could have gone a different direction. We could say, hey, let's have, instead of a quoted string, we could actually just have a variable that has these things instead. Now, do we need this? Probably not, but it's definitely a design choice. And then you could come in and instead of assigning a string, you can assign a variable. All things can use that same variable, and then it's a matter of changing one thing in one place to affect most of the code that's looking at languages. But since we are using these language code styles instead of the numbers, oh, thank you. I have a water delivery. So, one thing I would say is let's go ahead and clean this up. Turbine.language.french and turbine.language.german. Now, if we had any questions about it, we could hover over it. We can see 268435460. Awesome. Since we're changing, we'll kill that trailing space.
It's on too.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Yay for water. Okay, so we'll go ahead and replace those magic numbers there. And then suddenly this legend here maybe doesn't matter so much, right? Like we have these numbers, but we don't need these numbers. There's an enumeration for it. All right, invalid is 0. Yes. English is 2. Yes. English DB. All these things, but they don't matter. We don't actually need it. So we get locale. And then we swap in the string representation that we want instead of that number. Okay. So, that being said, we know we're going to have a suffix here, enfrde, and our files end that way as well. So instead of doing an if statement based off of locale, which would look like this, if glocale equals en, then import applocald dot, and then we're going to go ahead and rename, so we can copy that, en. Else, if glocale equals fr, then, and then the same thing for German de. And in fact, if you need a fallback, it might even be better, first of all, do these in alphabetical order. And then just do an else. Don't actually do an else if. Just fall back to English. Okay. So, and these other ones, we would say DE. But hopefully you can see that there's a lot of redundancy in what we've just done here. Because what we could go ahead and do is say, wait a second, glocale is DE. Cool, let's just go ahead and attach that on. And same thing here. We'll go ahead and concatenate glocale. And same thing here, because we... Oh no, actually, technically, we did... If the above code weren't always defaulting to en, that would not be quite a one-to-one thing. Maybe there's a Russian involved. But right now, we know that it's always French, German, and a fallback of English, so this fallback can also assume English. Cool, okay. So at that point, we have 3 statements. Import this, import this. These are all the same code at this point. The only thing that's changing is the variable. So we do not need an if statement. We can just hoist that out and import just like that. And suddenly our import just gets a lot easier. We're importing wallet item categories underscore glocale. That's going to get DE, EN, or FR. Awesome. Oh, Little Redhead says it's 2-1 at the moment. And it's possible that this is a winner goes through, loser is out match. That's sad. Well, the Dutch have already scored 2 goals. Surely they can do a third. Okay, and then the final one, we want to go ahead and import wallet items by category. So we're going to go ahead and grab that name here. Same thing though, we'll concatenate on glocale. Now a lot of the other things are not putting spaces around their concatenation. It's a win in Rome kind of thing. It's not my preference, I find it harder to read. But we'll go ahead and just do that just because. Okay, do I think it needs to be the other way for any reason? Nah. Wallet item. Oh, wallet item category is wallet items by category. Does one of them make sense? Well, they're not in alphabetical order. Yeah, I think these categories are used first, and then the wallet items by category. I'm good with that. Okay. Categories first. Cool. And then, awesome. So we have our auto-generated files, and we have a way to import them where we don't have to have some ugly if statements. I am a little bit curious how they import these locale files elsewhere, though. Nope. I just want this variable. Cool. Where is this? Oh, they do the same thing. Awesome. They just use that locale Of the saved locale. Okay. Nice. So we're not using the saved locale. We have to use the current locale because we are doing exact textual matches against things in your wallet. If you are on the English client, this will show up as primroses, even if you would like the UI language to be different, and that's totally fine. But if we went and respected the German language request for the plugin, we would attempt to match the German version of primroses, and that would just not work. Okay. So we have everything we need. Now we just need a way to visualize it to start. Sorry about that. Also, after effects of a cold from last week. I actually don't mind the whole needing to blow my nose thing, but for me, my eustachian tubes are a little bit swollen, it feels like. And so pressure goes into my inner ears, and then it just does not come out, and it makes my head feel all wonky. And that's the part I don't like. Okay. So the place where we want to visualize this is this wallet info window thing. And right now there's a list of things that goes in here. But one of the things we could take advantage of is the fact that your wallet shows things in a tree, and we have formatted the items in a tree. So we could go ahead and list things in a basic tree, and it could look kind of like this barter window here. We could even have the icon of it, which we don't have in this wallet window here. And if we want it to be linkable in a way that this is not, like I can't control right click this. If we want it to be linkable in chat, and I think that's a friendly thing to do, then we want to generate one of these somethings. I don't actually remember what it's called, but I do know where to find it. So we're going to go look in Documents, Lord of the Rings Online, Plugins, and that's in Festival Buddy 2. And that is the barter window. So let's go ahead and open that up. Neighbors are being excited, so maybe something more is happening in the football.
No.
No.
It was a foul, but it wasn't called.
Grappling was happening. Okay, when we refresh this barter list, we reset the list of current items, and then we are doing stuff. Now, it could be a divisor because we want to have labels between things. That's cool. Otherwise, we have a control to hold stuff, and we have an item info control. All right, let's go check that out. So that is a Turbine UI LOTRO item info control. This item control allows a plugin to display an item that is available to a player. The item is completely interactable, allowing a user to use the item as they would from any other panel. Obviously not equip it, but preview it, send it in chat, that kind of thing. I suppose it's possible you could click, do drag drop operations on it as well. So, in order to have this, we need to have an item info, and in order to get that item info, we have some option. Well, we have at least one option. This plugin uses a homegrown function called getItemFromID. So let's find that. Okay, so we have a function called getItemFromID, and we have the item ID, And if it's not in hex, we need to put it into hex form. And that means a hex string, because we want to concatenate that thing into a shortcut string. Fantastic. So the way this happens is we get a quick slot, and we set its shortcut to be a item, shortcut type item with a string. The first half of that, I believe, has to do something with an actual item that's in your inventory. And the second is just the item ID. So if it's not something specifically in your inventory, I believe we can ignore the first half of it. We just have to have that item hex. And in this case, we think item hex is a string that does not have the 0x prefix, but otherwise is in hexadecimal form, and we can concatenate that in here. So, get item from ID. We want to go ahead and do something about that. There's a get hex function here, which I think is fascinating. If you pass in an item ID, it's going to go ahead and convert that manually from decimal to hexadecimal. And I've got to ask myself, does Lua not have a function to do that? Lua format decimal number as hex. I'm just going to do a quick little search online. Cool. In lieu of 5.x, you can use string.format function with the %x format specifier to convert integers to the hexadecimal representation. Let's try that out. I want to see that. So how do we try that out? I'm just going to go into main here. I'm going to go get a wallet item. I'm going to go to main, and at the very bottom, I'm just going to say turbine.shell.writeline, and do this, and string.format. How do we do that? %x, and that. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so unload, reload TitanBar, and we can see, oh, lovely. It got formatted as a hex string without the 0x prefix. So Festival Buddy is not using that capability, where get hex of item ID should really just be doing that. Probably. What are we actually doing? Okay, B is base, K are the characters. Okay, this is like a more generic thing. You could convert different bases here. Out is the actual thing. Okay, I and D, those are probably placeholders. Cool. We're divided by the base. Okay. And we have, looks like some remainders. Yeah. And then we concatenate in the first value of that. Wow, that just seems inefficient. We take the nth thing. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I don't think that's great. So, that would be a thing for Festival Buddy, is stop doing that. But for us, we could have a similar function. In fact, let's just go ahead and hoist this on out and find a place to put it. Now, wallet items is probably a fine place to put it for right now, until we have something better. I don't know. I made some notes here. Did I care about that? Let's come on in. Alright, so the wallet window. We're going to be doing a lot of work in here, so I would say let's go ahead and stick it in here for right now, and then move it to someplace better. So, let's go ahead and make a comment block for this. Gets an item or nil. Yeah, implementation inspired by Festival Buddy. And then to do move to a more general location, question mark? Probably. Okay, so what is item ID? Item ID is a string. No. Can we say integer? Yeah. Either the Sagosi says good evening to you. Do we want to be able to take this as a string? I don't know that it will really matter. Either the decimal item ID or the hex or the hex representation without 0x and a string is hex boolean. Tells us if we're using the integer or string version of item ID. Okay. The redhead says that the Netherlands scored another goal, this time for them, bringing it to 2-2. Good job, Dutch team. And we're returning an item, but it could be nil. Whoops. So we'll go ahead and mark that as a nullable. Not much to say about the return. Okay, so what we want to see is when we hover over this, we can see gets an item or nil. Awesome. All of that is there. So if the item ID is nil, then return nil. We have a get hex function here. I don't think we need that. I think we've determined that that is no good for us. So item hex is currently 0. That's not good. We want that to be item ID, but if not is hex, then we'll go ahead and assign it to string.format %x of item ID. Now we could go ahead and just say local item hex equals quote quote, like if we wanted to not have the premature assignment there. So if is hex, then else. So if item hex equals item ID, otherwise and we're correctly saying that it's defined as string, cannot convert its type. We think we're assigning an integer there. Yeah, that's fair. Lua interpret integer as string. Can I do that? To string. That sounds great. To string. Awesome. So we have taken an item ID which might be an integer or a string. If it's an integer, we're going to convert it to a string. We kind of know that it's already a string in that case because we're saying it is. That's fine. A toString on a string won't be a problem. And otherwise, we're going to pass what we think is an integer through string.format, which also produces a string. So we know that item hex is going to be a nice stringly typed thing anyway. We also have a quick slot. We're going to set its size to basically nothing. It's not going to be visible. All we're doing is using a p call to call the setItem shortcut function. And something that I don't understand is people calling the thing twice. You have just called the function. You don't need to call it again. Bam. pcall doesn't like test to see if the function would throw an exception. It calls the function, and if it does throw an exception, it instead captures it and turns it into an error code. So we've already called the thing. The damage is done. So we can then get the getItem function out of this. Don't need to set that to nil. It's a local, and it's going to fall out of scope here. We return the item. We don't need to set that to nil. It's a local. It's going to fall out of scope. Okay. Do we think that is true? Is there any reason why having a quick slot in there would cause problems if it's not set to nil? I think the answer is no, because the variable is going to get, in my head, destructed. I don't think that's the Lua parlance for it. But the variable goes away. I'm comfortable not doing that. If there's a memory leak, I will come back and fix that. Okay. Use pcall in case item does not exist. There we go. Okay, so we're taking that item hex, and there we go. So we have a function that allows us to take an ID and convert it into one of these. Well, went away. One of these interactable item displays. Don't know if I can drag and drop it, but maybe that was turned off. Okay, cool. What else can we do with that? Well, if we wanted to see an action, we could actually add it to... Well, could we add it to this window? Do we have an item ID here? Not sure. Let's go ahead and start the process of replacing this list with a tree, I think. There's a lot going on with listbox here. There's 37 references to it, and I'm not ready to just delete it. So what I'm going to say is this listbox, go away that, this listbox here, if we just do not parent it in the window, it'll just be, it'll be there, but it'll be hidden. And then any code that references it will not break. Nope. Apparently, one of the teams scored for Germany, and now the score is 2-3.
Austria.
Oh, sorry, Austria. So, who scored, Austria or Netherlands? Apparently, we got to check now. All right, Austria scored, bringing it to 3-2. Is it who's home, who's away?
It's Netherlands, Austria.
Okay. So Netherlands is going to be first. Okay. So we're going to come in here and we're going to hide this set parent here. And we can see if we just reload TitanBar and bring the wallet window up, it's still there. It's just not parented, so we can't see it. And because it's a local variable, it actually might not be there. Now that I think about it, it could have been destructed. But no, this scroll bar, for whatever reason, is not local, and it would have a parent of this box, so that would keep it in scope. That should probably be a local as well, but that's okay. What we want to do is go ahead and start making our own tree view that we can do in place of that. And we'll probably keep some of these naming conventions here. So WI wallet item, I'm not sure. List box, that's going to turn into tree view, and that's going to be new. Oops. That's going to be a new, not list box, but tree view. That's pretty easy. So we need to always remember to parent our new control. So set parent, and what was that? _g.wwi. Fantastic. I'm hearing anguish noises. Looks like a shot on goal missed.
Yeah.
But quite a lot. That was...
I mean, a clear shot, though.
Yeah. I'm impressed that people are able to steer the football with their head at all, let alone actually score goals with them. Okay, so what else do we have? We're gonna set a position. Yeah, in fact, that position, that size, that sounds great. Orientation? I don't think so. All right, we'll start with that. So size and position are the same. That's awesome. We need a scroll bar as well. So let's go ahead and just copy that for right now. Now I don't have these things set as local yet. Probably a good idea to do that at some point, but we'll circle back around to that. So okay, any place where we have list box, we want that to replace that with tree view. There we go. So we have a tree view scroll bar. We're setting its parent to be the tree view. Tree view set vertical scroll bar to this thing, setting its position, setting its size. That looks great. Okay. And the other thing is there is a there's a function called refresh scroll box. So we want a function. I don't know if refresh is the right word. Let's go ahead with populate. Populate wi tree view, and that's going to be a thing that we can call as well. Okay, so at that point, let's go ahead and reload and make sure we haven't done anything egregious here. Okay, so there is a tree view there. You can see this scroll bar, but because there's nothing in it, the scroll bar is not really doing anything. In fact, wi tree view, a common thing that we can do is go ahead and set the background. Wi tree view, set back color, and that's going to be a turbine.ui.color.something, maybe a dark red. And then if we go ahead and reload, we can see that that tree view does exist because that was the tree view whose background we set. Okay, so pretty common thing to do that, to just check out the extent of your control. So we're going to comment it out. We're not going to delete it. There's plenty of other, for debug purposes, colors out there. In fact, we can say for debug purposes. There we go. Cool. So how are we going to populate this thing? Well, we've already set up a data structure that's going to give us a lot of help here, and that's the items by category. So what we want to do is we want to walk through this table in the order of this and add each of the things. So the first thing we have here is category 9. So we're going to come on down to category 9, and for each of the items in here, and these should all be in 1 to n key values, so we can use I pairs. And we'll just iterate through each one and add it to the tree. So let's start by just using like a label, just to kind of demonstrate to ourselves that it's working. All right, so we have a populate W tree view. Let's just convince ourselves that that is working. It is not working, but I see this still is. Should have said hi. Why didn't it? Let's do it one more time. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Like saving the file. Okay. Why am I not seeing hi? Turbine.shell.writeLine. Before call. Oh, I didn't try to open a window, of course. This whole thing is only created when we hit that window button right here. There we go. Hi. Cool. We're in the right spot. let's go ahead and start writing some code then. That will help us. And I've got a note here on the iteration that I want to do. I'm going to double check that. In my notes I put it above that. That's fine. Make it a little bit easier to find what I'm working on. Okay, so we need to follow the basic process of working with a tree view. Let's come on into tree view. That's going to be turbine.ui.treeview. And there's actually some sample code here in the documentation, and that's very welcome. So the way this works is that we have a tree view, and in order to use it, we are going to call treeview get nodes, and that's going to be the root nodes. And to start with, there's going to be 0 of them. Okay, so local root nodes equals wi treeview get nodes. Okay, for whatever reason, and I don't like this choice, I don't know that I fully understand it, but right now I don't like it, is that the tree view has a get nodes function. And each of the nodes that is returned, or each new node that you make that is a tree node, has its own function called get child nodes. And that is frustratingly different, because the nodes at the base root of tree view are tree nodes, just like the nodes of a node. And it feels like there should either be get child nodes for the tree view, or better, the node should also have a function called get nodes, and that would be the nodes underneath that node. Maybe they thought this was less confusing. I don't know. But node get nodes would have been my preference, and it's not. So just be aware, it's child nodes for any node. It's nodes for the tree view itself. Oh well, that's where we're at. So we have these root nodes. Cool. If you wanted this to be a thing that you could call multiple times without worrying about if you're just going to add stuff in, you could either check to see if the count of it is greater than 0, then just return, or you could just call quick clear. Clearing means we might be doing a bunch of redundant work, but it's not going to be any worse. Now, I don't actually, my plan is to only set this up once, and so what I would rather do is if root nodes get count is greater than 0, then return. And that's not formatted the way I want it to be. The tree has already been set up. Call refresh instead to refilter. Now, we haven't gotten to the filter yet, but the plan is to have the tree view filter nodes out. So it'll just go to each node and say, hey, should you be displayed or not? The node will say yes or no. And so we're going to go ahead and play into that already. So instead of just calling clear and redoing all the work, we're just going to refilter instead. Okay. But we'll figure more about that when we actually get to filtering. In fact, we could go without this right now, and it would be fine. Okay, so what we want to do is start iterating through this table. Well, really want to start iterating through this table. So let's go ahead and grab that name. And what we want is to iterate for, I don't know, x, y in I pairs of this thing do end. What are these things? We have these are categories, so it's a category index and a category number. I don't know, sure. Category index, category number. It's very nice if you can tell future programmers to look at your code, what were you expecting to get out of this iteration? Might not be what you are getting. There could be errors. Things could change. But at the time you wrote this, that's what you were expecting. Okay, so we need a new tree node, and that's going to be, I don't know, something equals a turbine.ui.tree node. So let's just call it the category node. Okay. So this is a new UI element. So we need to, let's see, do we actually need to set a parent here? Local node, entry node. We add it to that list of nodes. That's probably going to take care of it. Okay. So let's add it to the list of nodes. We have root nodes, add, and we can then do the category, category node. Cool. Now, we want to remember to set a size for this. If we don't, actually, we can do set back color here, just as an example. Turbine.ui.color. I don't know, dark blue. And that actually might be enough to start. We can get something on the screen. It won't be very exciting, though. Cool. We have a bunch of blue background things that start off a default size of not very big. So let's go ahead and fix that up. This is going to be category node set size, and we need a width and we need a height. Let's go ahead and set a couple of constants. So local tree width equals wi tree view get width. We only need to call that once. Local row height equals something. For reasons, we're going to call that 36, but we'll circle back around to that. So we want to set that size to be the tree width and the row height. All right, so if we reload this, come on in here, we can see all of those things are now the right width. Awesome. Let's go ahead and add a label. I'm going to go ahead and hide that color. Let's go ahead and add a category label. So local category label equals turbine.ui.label. Awesome. What is tree node? Who is tree node? Tree node is a control. Okay, so I should be able to just add things to this tree node. So node. Yeah. Okay. So category label set parent to category node. Awesome. And what else? We want to set text. Yeah. Category label set text. And for right now, we're just going to put the category number in there. Why not? Yeah, I know. All right. To string. And then category label set size. We should do that. And we can just copy the same thing. We might want to do things like changing the font color or something, but for now that's probably good enough. Yeah, all right. Let's see what that looks like. Hey, all the numbers are there. And that blue background went away. Okay, so where can we get this category? Well, we know that we've got a wallet item categories, and so we should be able to look up the language-specific value for this. So, in the setting the text area, instead of using that category number, let's instead do wallet item categories of that. All right. Coin, festival, and events landscape. That's awesome. So we can see that in the wallet window, they've got this kind of gold color. And having looked at this, TitanBar also has its own gold color. So let's go ahead and bring that in. Category label set for color. Don't do that very often. And that's going to be the color of nice gold. Okay, and that gets us much closer to the look of the wallet. I'm actually going to bring that over here. All right, and this happens to be in the order that it is in my wallet on this character. That'll make it easier for developing purposes. Okay, so these are each nodes, but they don't have any children nodes right now, so clicking on them doesn't do anything. So we want to have another level of iteration. For each category, we want to iterate through underneath it. Okay. So for X, Y in something, I pairs of not that, but the wallet items by category. There we go. But of that category number. Do end. So what's in there? Each one of these. We can see that we have, let's call it an index and an item ID. Why is that as a string, I ask myself. I don't like that. So, index, item ID. I'm actually going to go into the generator of this file. As soon as I can figure out where it is. Wallet items by category. Okay, that is here. And we can see we're writing these out. I equals item ID. Not a fan. Let's kill that. We're going to go ahead and regenerate these. Fantastic. And now we can see its number is number. And all these can be stored in their 4 bytes, and they can be treated as numbers in memory. Hopefully, I don't really understand Lua, so it's possible that might not be a benefit. So we have the index and the item ID. Don't know if we're actually going to do anything with the index, but we have that item ID. So we can start by just having a label, right? So local label equals turbine.ui.label. Label set parent. Well, we need a node actually. Hang on. So we need a local item node, and that's going to be a turbine.ui.tree node. And from that, we need to add it to the category node add. Wait. Can't do that because of this whole thing. Oh, okay. So we need the get child nodes called. Okay. So before we loop into here, local category node nodes equals category node get child nodes. Fantastic. Okay, from here we can go ahead and say category node nodes add item node. Fantastic. And we can set the label to this, the parent of this to be item node. Okay, from that, what do we have? Setting the text. Label set text. And for that, we have an item ID. Let's just set it as toString item ID. Cool. And you know what? We could just go with that. I think we need to set the size for that to be correct. Yeah, we can see a bunch of not correct sizes here. But we have a start here. So label set size of something. So tree width and row height. Okay, fantastic. We have numbers and such. It's odd. Well, the item node itself, we didn't set the size of that. Yeah, so let's go ahead and say item node said size, and we want that same width and height as everything else. Oh, that looks better. Okay. Now, one thing that we have to take care of ourselves is sort of an indenting on subsequent lines. So we could take care of that right now, in some fashion. The item node itself, could we change that? Maybe. Okay. Item node set size, item node set position. And let's say it's 10 over from the left. No, that was not enough. So if we go ahead and define local row indent equals, let's try that same 10. Then the label, that, let's set a position. And we can say row indent. And then the size, we might want to remove that row indent so we don't actually send stuff off the edge. Okay, that looks better. What doesn't look great is we don't actually have the name of the item here. So let's go ahead and do our item lookup. And this could always fail, so we might want to have some thoughts in mind of what happens if it does fail. So look up the item. What does that do? So local... let's try that. So we have that get item from ID, and we have the item ID, and it is not a hex. Did we actually set a default value for that? Can you? We'd think it is not a hex. Okay, so that could fail, right? So if item, then do stuff. And if not, we'll just want to skip past it. Don't want those extra spaces. So if item, then we'll go ahead and do stuff. What do we need? If we go back to that Festival Buddy code, we are going to make an item info control, and to do that, we need the items get item info. We might save that off as a local variable though. So, okay, local item info equals get item info, and then we should be able to use that in here. So, item get name. Oh, we can get that from the item. Okay. Let's start with that. Oh, no. That's odd. it from the item info? Yeah, maybe. Item info. Get name. Let's try that. Okay. Promising. So one thing I'm seeing here is that we definitely have stuff that I don't have in my wallet. And so as a starting view, we might want to filter out some of those things that don't exist in my wallet. We have ways to look at that up in TitanBar, but we'll come back to filtering after we get the rest of after we get some more things. So one thing we could take advantage of is we have the knowledge of whether something is account-wide, well, server-wide shared in that parlance. Account shared. So we could go ahead and color those as green in a label. That'd be kind of cool. Okay, so let's come on in here. And that label, let's go ahead and if, what do we have? We need to look up the item in wallet items using that ID. So if we found the item, then local I don't know, value, something equals item ID. Great. So we know that's indexed by IDs. We have IDs. Great. Okay, so we have a value here, and we can say if the value, I think it's not a great name. I should come back up with something better than that. Of shared, then else end. So what we want to do is, if it is shared, then label set for color to something. Let's see. Do we have, what do we have here? Ice cream. Maybe. Sure. Let's try that out. We'll set it to nice screen and see what happens. Now, the white's actually matching, right? Like that white text is pretty close to it if it's not exactly. So let's go ahead and reload here. And come back in. Okay. That's a little dark. How about just green? Okay. Bottles of ale, keg of cram. Awesome. And we can see some word wrapping is happening here. That's great. What else? Other? Sure. And yep, all the embers and whatnot. Cool. So we've got that. Let's go ahead and see if we can't get that item info control thing going. So for that, actually, it'd be very helpful if I didn't have to expand all of these things. Let's come on in to the category node and say category node set expanded to true. Well, that didn't work. But why didn't work? Maybe you gotta do that after you add everything? Apparently. Don't expand it until things are added or you do not get the results you want. Okay, so we need a something something. Let's go on into... You know, it'll make life a little bit easier if instead of adding things directly to the node, we go ahead and make a control that holds all the other controls here. Will it make it easier? It might, because then we can indent that one control however we want. We don't have to calculate the indent for all of the different controls. So we have an item node, and we're going to make a control to hold image, name, etc. Okay, so that's going to be a local item control equals turbine.ui.control. And in this, we just need a couple of things, right? It's going to be parented by the item node. We got to set its size, and it's actually going to be that size that we did here, minus that indent, right? And then we need to set its left equal to that indent. Item control, set left equal to the row indent. Okay, and then the label, the size... Its position is going to be different, actually, but it's going to be based off of this other thing. So, local item info control equals a turbine.ui.lotro.item info control. Great. That thing's going to be parented. Item info control. Set parent to the item control. And we need a couple more things. Let's set the size. And just looking at what we do over in... I'm going to actually pull that on in Festival Buddy, where we're getting inspired from. We make the thing. Cool. Done. We set the parent. Done. We set the size. All right. Let's go ahead and just... hit that. So setting the size, that seems like a good idea. Setting the position. No, I'm good. Setting the item info, definitely want that. And we have an item here. And so we can call get item info on it, but we already did that. So let's just use that local variable. And setting the quantity. Well, we actually know how many of those things we have. Let's grab that, actually. So if we have the thing, local quantity equals, we actually have a table called player currency that we've seen before. So item info get name. And so just in case it's not here, we'll go ahead and get quantity. Well, if it's not there, we have a problem. Local quantity equals 1. Well, how about 0? If this thing exists, then okay. Quantity equals that. And we'll go ahead and use the quantity here, see what happens. We forgot to change the location of that label. So we want to go ahead and set the position to be, well, local item info control width equals 36. And we're going to set the size of that thing equal to that and that. And the position of this equal to that plus, say, 2, just so the label's not sitting smack on it. And I think what we're going to discover is that we've got some alignment issues. Hello, little one. Yeah? Do you know what you're looking for? Did you just wake up?
I think you just wake up.
Everyone's gone. Okay, well, what we can see here is that we did not fix the problem of the label overwriting that. Label set position, item control width plus 2, yeah. Set size. Let's make another variable here. Local item control width equals, and we're going to say true width minus row indent. And then we can say minus item info control width. I think that might not actually fix the problem, but it is better. Okay, so what else is going on? Setting the parent to, oh, we didn't set it to item control. Wrong parenting. Okay, so we have, that's not great. Let's go grab a background color change. And we'll just set that to be the label. And come on back in and see what we've got here. Okay, so the labels are taking up that whole vertical space. And because of that, we can take advantage of an alignment to put the text in the vertical position that we want. And so let's come on in here, comment that out. And let's go ahead and call label set alignment, text alignment. And that's going to be a turbine.ui.content alignment. We can see that, dot something. So what are these options? Bottom center of the region, middle center, middle left of the region, top. Okay, so the first half of it seems to be vertical alignment, and the second half seems to be horizontal alignment. So for instance, if we wanted to be bottom right, we would expect to be bottom aligned and right aligned. Let's see if that is the case. I do not want it that way, but for testing purposes, awesome. We can see that. In fact, we can see this thing is too wide, possibly by the amount of the scroll bar. No, a little bit more than that. Why is it so wide? Item control width, which is the true width minus the row indent, and minus that, oh, and the 2. Haha. Local label left equals that. In fact, sometimes when I'm laying out controls, I like to just have a left, and that's going to be 0. And at the end of it, left equals left plus, and we can indicate what we're doing here. And then here, our position, well, that's just going to be the current left. Let's go check that out. Oh, and then the width is going to be item control minus our left, I think. Oh, that's better. Now, the scroll bar still goes on top of it, so that's not great. The scroll bar, we know, is going to be a width of 12. All right. Local scroll bar width equals 12. So in each of these places where we're making something, we could take that into account. So true width minus that. And in fact, at that point, instead of tree width, what we would want is local row width equals tree width minus scroll bar width. And suddenly we have a row width and row height, and that makes it easier. All right. So tree width. Item node. Cool. Oops. Cool. Let's check that out. Oh, there we go. Row width minus row net. There we go. All of the text of these things is now ending just before that scroll bar starts. Now, is that scroll bar wide, too wide enough? I don't know. It's not worth my time right now. A winner ribbon. But it's fine. And we can see our counts are working on those places where we have something. So badge of taste, we can see 375 badges of taste. On those places where not, we just see big fish. Well, that's cool. I do not have any winner ribbons. Or I have one, I guess. Cool. Now, the wallet doesn't actually overlay the number on top of the icon, and for a good reason. If we search for... Oh, searching doesn't work yet, of course. If we scroll on down to Embers of Enchantment, it barely fits with a 4-digit value. But if we look at Universal Ingredient Packs, hovering over, we can see that I have 30,867 of them. Not quite enough, but I'm working on it. But the actual value that's overlaid on top of here is just 30,86, telling us there's probably more than that. But we can see in the wallet, instead, they have enough horizontal space where they go ahead and put the number next to it in a right-aligned field. And that way, if you have a lot of something like this currency, it doesn't matter. If they want to have both the currency and the cap there, that can be useful. And we have that information. And if we wanted to kind of mimic the way the wallet's laid out, we should probably do that instead. And that might actually bring us back to, do we really want this thing that's interactable? Probably. I think it's kind of cool to be able to right-click and share. I have 0 statues of Elendil. Which is true. I have 0 of those. Or, I guess if any of these were interactable in the wardrobe, that could be interesting. Nope, cannot equip that. There's a lot of stuff here I don't have. A filter would be nice. Okay. So, we have the basics of a wallet that can mimic what's going on. What's going on here? Why is there so much space? Am I adding nodes that I don't mean to? I don't know, that's weird. Category node nodes, we're adding stuff. I mean, I guess, let's set item node set back color to turbine.ui.color dark yellow. Nope, don't have that. Dark cyan. That sounds good. There's something definitely going on at the very top of these things. Okay. Category node. Let's set the back of the category node. Is the category node super tall or something? Yep, the category node is super tall. Why? Well, we've got a row height here. Was that a reasonable thing to do? I don't know, but I am noticing that the labels could take advantage of that alignment as well. So let's bring in that context alignment label property, text alignment. And the category label, let's go ahead and set that text alignment and see if that makes it look better. Oh yes, we didn't want bottom right. So we wanted, I think, middle left. And let's go ahead and do that here as well. Middle left. Okay. That's nicer. At least I assume it will look nicer once I get rid of those colors. Okay, so get rid of the dark cyan. Get rid of the dark blue. Cool. Okay, so something that we don't have yet is when these categories are collapsed and expanded, we are not seeing any sort of visual representation of that. Like with these plus buttons, these and minus buttons, we also don't have a way to collapse all and expand all, and those are very useful things. In the deed tracker plugin, we've already gone through the effort of making that happen. So let's pull that up and take a look at it. Deed tracker sounds good. And remember, when you add or move a plugin while LOTRO is running, make sure you hit this green arrow to refresh, and we'll go ahead and load up deed tracker. So in the deed tracker window, we have two things. We have these pluses and minuses, and those respond to the expand and collapse. If you click anywhere on that row, we expand or collapse, and we get that visual acknowledgement that we did that. And we also have the expand all, collapse all buttons up here. And we'll want to borrow heavily from deed tracker for that. The images that we're using, want to grab those, all of it. What's interesting is that if you look in your quest log, it uses a different plus minus symbol, or at least it has a background with a box in addition to that foreground of the double plus or the double minus. I think that's interesting. I like the boxy one, I think, but we do have options. Hey, little one. Yeah. 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 I don't know if the meowing is coming across, but he's very cute. What do you want? I assume you do not want me to pick you up, but I'd be happy to. No? Okay. Wandering away. Okay, so for now we can do without it. The expansion and contraction works just fine even without that, but I think it's a really nice thing to add in the pluses and minuses. Mayfair says he's talking about something. He is. I do not know what goes on in that fuzzy little head of his, though. Like, he likes getting scritches, but he doesn't hang around for scritches. He likes getting snacks, but
Do you have a footstool for him?
I do not have a place for him to sit. Maybe he wants to sit next to me. But for right now, that's not going to happen. Okay. So, we have maybe a couple more minutes here on the stream. So I don't think I want to get into the plus and minus thing quite yet. But I think we have just enough time to talk about filtering. Filtering is a thing that tree views and I think list boxes might also have. Let's see that. Maybe. But tree views have a function called set filter. And this is a filter that you can use for each node to identify whether it should be visible right now. Come on. You want to come sit over here? Yeah. Well, Little Red had tried to bring a footstool, but, yeah. Yeah, do you want a treat? Yeah. Come on over here. Come join me. There you go. Just off camera right there. Okay, so we have a function called setFilter, and there's not a lot of information in the documentation here, but what you do is you pass it a function that will return that takes a tree node and will return either true or false whether that tree node should be visible. So let's get started. And for reasons, we're going to want to put that someplace where it can see the filter text, because we want this search box to be a part of what we're looking at when we filter things. And for that filter, we can come see that the filter label is currently local. So wherever we put this filter function, it's gonna benefit from being in the same place as that. So, hey little one. Let's go ahead and just set it inline here for right now. So we're going to go ahead and say function wallet tree view filter function. And that's going to take a tree node and it's going to return a Boolean. So let's document this, because how it works it can be incredibly frustrating to kind of figure out. So this is a tree view filter. This takes a tree node, and we know that it's going to be a tree node, so we can document it here. And it does indeed return a Boolean. So this is going to be true if node should be hidden, false if visible. Which to me feels backwards. It feels to me like we should be asking, is this visible? And what we're actually asking is it hidden? Which... it's fine. Just to be aware, that's the question. Filter is really, is it filtered? Is it hidden? Trumpet asks, random question, is there a place to secure high resolution and large images of all the different LOTRO skill icons? So, I think in the data files, most of these icons only go up to 32 by 32, which is a problem if you happen to be thinking high resolution is more like 256 by 256. So that's the first thing I would say, is that may not be really a thing. But secondly, I know there's people out there who have data file extractors where you can look at the contents of those data files. And I think those images are probably a part of that. And certainly in-game, if you just needed a couple, you could go to the asset browser. Let's see if we can't go find that. Trevor was thinking more like, I want them on a t-shirt, so really big. Yeah, I think you're going to run into problems. So Hunter, Deadly Decoy. Let's go ahead and add that a sec. A lot of the icons scale up reasonably well. Like, you can inflate them to ridiculous sizes. Let's go ahead and load the Hunter Deadly Decoy as an example. Nope, can't do that. Need... really? It doesn't have... well, that's a mistake that I should have known better. Okay, let me go grab the turbine examples. Okay, cool. So, 100 Deadly Decoy, if we come in at the options and scroll this up, like, the in-game scaling is not bad, actually, for images, but this is not... it's not as detailed as it could be. So, like, this is the original size. That's 32 icons, 32 pixels by 32 pixels. And you can scale it up to 320 by 320, and it doesn't look terrible to me, but it might not come across as well as on a shirt. Then again, you can only get so high a resolution on a t-shirt, so maybe it's fine. So yeah, eighth challenge that the team at Standing Stone Games must deal with in the near future. And caveat, I do not work for Standing Stone Games. I only know what they tell us in public. But one of their goals is to adapt LOTRO so that people who are running in beyond the standard 1K size 1920 by 1080 in 2K or 4K, twice as wide or 4 times as wide, 4 times as high, that those players can have a satisfying experience in some way. And if on the very basic level, that means making sure windows can be, scaled different sizes and that kind of thing. On a longer term, that might mean that some of their assets like this need to be redone in higher resolution. Maybe not. Maybe they're happy with it being as it is. I'm on a 1K monitor, so on a 4K monitor, it would have to look like this to take up the same proportional screen real estate as a 32 by 32 icon on a 1K monitor. Maybe that's not so bad, especially in the short term. So in the short term, they're probably working more on things like windows that can't be resized, or if they are resized, the text on them isn't rescaling properly, that kind of thing. Anyway, all that being said, you can get icons in-game. One thing you can do is just screenshot them and then fiddle with them. But most of the icons in-game go up to 32 by 32. There is a plugin called Asset Browser, which essentially just tries to make an icon number 1, icon number 2, icon number 3. It's a little bit more intelligent than that. But it just goes through all of the possible icon numbers and displays them in a grid. And so let me just go ahead and scooch that up. And so you can just, I do not like Hunter Deadly Decoy still being there, like that. So you can just see all of the assets in the game. Do not do that. Don't show me the grid. Oh, do show me the grid. So one thing you can do is just say, hey, show me everything that's just 32 by 32 if you were looking specifically for a skill icon, because those tend to all be 32 by 32. But if you're curious what else was out there, what other aspect ratio of things, all of that, this is a way to kind of play around with that and take a look. I don't like that background, and I've gotten rid of that before. Oh, I think on my personal copy I have changed that. Anyway, so that being said, success. Just bear in mind, Standing Stone Games in the past has turned blind eyes to people using assets for non-commercial purposes, but they have lawyers and they will keep an eye out for people like selling shirts with their stuff on it. Even Standing Stone Games isn't really allowed to merchandise, like sell shirts of stuff in Lord of the Rings Online, because they have licenses to use the Lord of the Rings property for a game, but not necessarily for merchandise. So, if you're making a shirt for your own personal self, I don't think anyone's going to be like, stop doing that. If you're selling stuff over on Etsy or something with their stuff on it, they'll probably notice and be upset about that. Okay, so where were we? Excellent question, though. Thank you very much. Filters. We were talking about filters. So we are writing a function. Where did my code go? And we want it to return true if it should be hidden, false if not. So by default, we're just going to say always show it, just so we can have this be called. Excuse me. And then we need to set this as a filter function. So where's our tree view? Oh, we can just probably call it right after that. Yeah? WI tree view set filter, and we're just going to pass the name of this function in. And then somewhere we might call refresh. In fact, let's go ahead and just say turbine.shell.writeLine called. Now, we actually should expect that to be called one time for each node, so we might get spammed with that, but that's okay. So, cool, we got a bunch of spams. It just filled up our chat log. So we know that function is getting called once per node, probably. It certainly was called a bunch of times. So what do we do with this thing? Filter ideas. Always show a category if at least one item is in it. But I'll show a category for now. Maybe hide if nothing in that category. And then for items, hide if not in wallet would be the first one. Now later on we could maybe have some radio buttons or other filter controls that toggle that, where we can see everything or just what's in my wallet, or maybe even a subset of what's in the wallet, like common festival item things or whatever. And if there's a search term, hide if we don't match it. Okay, that's a good start. Maybe hide old items by default. We'll actually move that up. That one's pretty easy to implement. Okay, how do we know if something's a category? We don't have an easy way of doing that, but we can add custom properties to this tree node. So when we're making this tree node down here, and in fact, let's go ahead and collapse some stuff down. So populate, that's the tree view, that's the list box, great. So when we're making a category node, we can go ahead and say category node dot is category equals true. My IntelliSense will complain because I'm adding fields, but it's okay. I don't mind. And so the first thing we can do is in this filter function. Actually, we're going to keep an eye on that. If tree node dot is category, then return false. We want it to be visible end. Okay. And then for items, we know it's not a category, so it must be an item because it's the only thing we have in this tree. Then what do we have? Let's get the name of the thing. Now, we didn't save off an easy way to get the name. Like what we could do is like tree, like local name equals tree node dot something dot or get text. And that something would be the label itself, like label. So we can do the same thing as we did with category, and we can save that off for later use. So we have a item node, and we have a label. So at the end of making this label, we can say item node dot label equals label, and that means we'll be able to access it later. So now we have this, and we could even say turbine.shell.writeLine checking and spit out name. Checking node name. Let's take a look at that. Awesome. I misspelled node, but we can see we have a bunch of things, including ending with our three currencies, embers, figments, and motes. Okay. Embarrassing, misspelling node, but that's okay. So we have the name. We're able to grab that back out of the label. Now, do we have to do it that way? No, we could store it as its own field on the node if we wanted to. But, you know, we have options. This is just a thing that we can do. Okay, so we have the name, so we can check to see, is it in our wallet? So if, let's first check, if player currency of the name, then it's in the wallet. Else, end. It's not in the wallet. Exclude by default. So we might circle back around and make this more complicated, but for right now, if it's not on the wallet, return true, please filter it. And okay, so maybe hide old items. Sure, yeah. That could be done. I don't think any old items will be in. Actually, I would say hiding old items by default doesn't make sense. No, just, well, sure. Yeah, okay. So if we have an item ID, we could definitely check that oldness to it. Do we have an item ID? We have this item ID here. What do we do with it? I'm not sure we do, but we could go ahead and associate that with the node as well. And that would allow us to get that entry in the wallet items. So let's go ahead and we have an item node. Great. Item node dot item ID equals item ID. And then we'll be able to take advantage of that. Okay, so if value dot old, then don't show old items, return true. And I'm separating these out, even though there aren't any old items in my wallet, because eventually we will have like a radio button or like a checkbox that says show old items or whatever, and that this we would say if we are not showing old items and it's old, then so we'll be able to expand these sections, and then show just my wallet or show all, show items not in my wallet, that kind of thing. So it's in the wallet. And then, we should check on that filter string. So if wi filter text, if that exists, dot text, then we want to go ahead and check that. And that is happening up here. We can see if string we want something like that. Actually, we want that. We probably want to do the to lower as well. We don't actually care about case here. Okay, so we want to make that local. Filter text equals. We're doing a string dot lower on that. Awesome. Don't care about that. Don't care about that. Okay, so if string dot find of the lower of the name, we can replace that, and comparing that against filter text, which is also lower. Oh man. It's okay, Casper. It just sounds like fireworks. Okay. Whenever we change the text here, we set that to that, and then we call filter on it, which is funny because it doesn't actually take a parameter. What we actually want to do is go ahead and save off a dot lower text equals string dot lower of wi filter text dot text. There we go. We want to save that off, and in the filter function for the list box, which we're getting rid of, they would set it once in a global variable instead of a local one, odd, and then use it in repeatedly, and that's fine. But our function is only getting called once per node, so we do not want to call to lower every single time if we can avoid it. It might be cached off somewhere else in the system, but we want to just assume that it's not. And so we're going to go ahead and say not filter text, but dot lower text. And in fact, that's the thing we're going to check on. Is lower text existent? Then we're going to do something. So what is this string.find? We are finding the stuff. But this is checking to see, is it equal to nil? We did not find it. Then, so is there a filter? And if so, does it not match the current node? Yeah. Okay. So return true. Again, we're filtering out. So if it's there, and we could do this as an and, or we can just do an embedded. If we had more complicated stuff to do, I definitely like this format. If string.find string.lower of the current name and that lower text. If it's nil, then we didn't find it and return true. Okay. If the value.old, return true. If it's in the wallet, if it's not in the wallet, we return true. Okay. What else? Do nothing. Cool. And if nothing caused us to return true, then return false. All right, let's give that a try. How will we know if it works? Well, first of all, anything that's marked old or is not in my wallet will probably not show up. So let's go back up, and we can see under festivals and events, we see anniversary tokens, bad fish, badge of dishonor, badges of taste, bottles of ale, buried treasure. All of these things have a count on them, or except for small apples. I only have one of them. That's fine. Oh, interesting. Something wanted a thing that doesn't exist. Wallet window 284. Let's go check that out. 284. I must have touched it. Interesting. What did I touch? I don't know. I don't know why it specifically showed up, but sure. Okay. So we've correctly filtered things, and the last one to check is the actual search box here. So if I type in token, that didn't work. Okay. Where is the WI filter happening? Okay. When the filter text is changed, well, we're only calling the list box filter, but WI tree view refresh. So, TOKE. That is nice. So these are all the tokens that show up in my wallet. And if I search for token, now we can see coin is still over here and it disappeared on the right. So we'll have to think about that for a second. But I think we're seeing a lot of just what we should. Token of Wildemore, Anduin, Riddermark, Wilds, TitanBar token of exchange, Anduin, Riddermark, Wilds. Token of Further Adventure and Heroism, those are showing up green, excellent. Hidbolt, Karum Ibnar, Zelruka, and Warband tokens. Okay, so everything is showing up that should, nothing is showing up that shouldn't, except for those categories themselves. That's great. And if we wanted something really limited, like Figments of Splendor or something, we can see only one thing shows up. Or enchantment. Enchantment, we see just the two things. Awesome. So, categories. So one thing that we should know is the filter function goes in sorry, when you're going through a tree, like this tree view is, there's a couple different ways you can iterate through. You can either go depth first, breadth first or depth first. Breadth first, width first, is going through each thing at a level. So these are all the root ones, so that would be coin, and then festivals and events, and then landscape. And then once you've done all of those, you start going through the children of that. Gold and silver, then mithril, and then anniversary tokens, bad fish, and so on. Electronic thought something that was wrong. Lord of the Rings Online is very much alive. Welcome. We're doing a stream on plugins for Lord of the Rings Online. So right now I'm modifying the TitanBar plugin. Okay, so breadth first has its benefits, it has its problems. But the filter function, for better or worse, does a depth first. So it's going to visit coin and say, should I show you? And then it's going to visit mithril coin, should I show you? And then it's going to go into festival events. Should I show you? And then anniversary, and then bad fish and bad dishonor, and so on. And then landscape and Amroth and bingo. And then taxidermy and 10 pound and 15 pound. So it's going to ask a category first, should I show you? Before we go into each of the children of the category. Electronic asks, is the game play to win? No, I don't think so. I don't find it that way. It is free to play, and there are many games that follow a free to play model where you are very much encouraged to spend money. I don't feel like that's necessarily the case in Lord of the Rings Online, but there are certainly many quality of life improvements that can be gotten through LOTRO points, which can be earned both through in-game play and by buying them with real-world money. For me, every once in a while I do spend some real-world money on it, and anyone who has a monthly or annual subscription also gets some LOTRO points just at the beginning of each month as a part of that subscription. But if you're free to play, your only source of LOTRO points is in-game accomplishments, usually deeds, but there are maybe a couple others, or spending real-world money. If you are... Where'd my deed tracker window go? Okay, there's a deed tracker button. There we go. If you're interested in such things, the deed tracker plugin, which I developed a while back, will show you how many LOTRO points are earnable in each region. And so if you're interested in earning LOTRO points, you have more time than money, for instance, you might create a character and run through the Shire and Eredlun and Breeland and Swanfleet and Cardolan and maybe in the Lone Lands and in the North Downs. And you can see that if you did that, although this is slightly misleading because Breeland also includes the Wildwood, which is level 45 to 50 area. But you can see 300, 450, almost 650, 850, call it close to 1,000 LOTRO points that are pretty easy to get in the first 40 levels of play. And so some people who have more time than money will just make a character, run through the first 40 levels. Maybe they have a level 150 character helping them with that, earn all the easy to get LOTRO points, and then just delete the character, make a new one, and do that for a few hours and get a bunch of LOTRO points that you can use to purchase content in the game or items or whatnot. So I'm not an endgame player of Lord of the Rings Online, so I can't really tell you if players who play on endgame content feel differently, but I think you can play the vast majority of the game without spending any real money on LOTRO points if you want to. The one thing I would say is if you have a little bit of spare money, you might become a subscriber, either monthly or annually, and the minimum amount is 1 month. So you might become a subscriber for 1 month, and then any of the characters that you have on your account that you log in during that time will permanently unlock things like swift travel at the Stable Masters and maybe the premium wallet if that's not included in general, and that kind of thing. And that's a very nice quality of life enhancement. Is it necessary? No. Is it really nice to be able to swift travel from various places if you choose to? Yeah, it absolutely is. So that's a thing that some people will do is just get that swift travel from Stable Master to Stable Master, but then stop, and then free to play for the rest of the time. So there's kind of 3 categories of an account. or a character really. There's free to play. You've never paid any money for annual or monthly subscriptions. There's what they call premium, I think, which is you're in that intermediate stage where you have some of the benefits of having had a subscription, but not any of the active benefits. And then there's the VIP subscription, which is the monthly or annual subscription. Awesome. Agartha says the premium wallet's been rolled in. Everyone gets it. And the gold cap increase. Cool. Awesome. The wiki has a further explanation of these kinds of things. So, but I would say if you are interested in an MMO where there's a lot of story going on, there's a lot of adventuring in the world of Middle Earth, then you can go a long, long way without paying any real world money, because even if it were pay to play at the end game, it will take you a long time to get to that end game. And in the meantime, you have a whole bunch of the game to explore and enjoy without having any pressure to spend money. I think at this point, all of the content up to level 100 or so is free for free-to-play players, so that gets you through up to and or through Mordor. So you can take the ring to Mordor, and you do not have to pay anything if you do not choose to. However, I tend to think my monthly subscription benefit is good. It helps, hopefully, support the servers, support the developers who keep making the game better. Fingers crossed. And so if you are a person who has that money as part of your entertainment budget, then I think it's a well worth the 7 or 8 money units per month or something that it costs if you take the annual rate and you divide it by 12. It's not very expensive to be an annual subscriber for those of us with a little bit of an extra expendable budget. Of course, if you're living hand to mouth or have other financial issues, don't pay for a subscription for LOTRO. Just play it for free. It's fine. You'll have a good time. Okay, cool. So we have a filter function. We did take advantage of the text. I think that's probably all we're gonna do today as far as this process. We're able to visualize what's in our wallet and kind of mimic what's going on here. Oh yeah, the categories thing. That was the one last thing. That's the last thing we're going to work on before the stream ends, is can we hide categories? Excuse me. Figments of Splendor, Enhancement, that's what it was. No? Amber of Enchantment, the other E word. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to take advantage of the fact that we know that this is a depth-first search through the tree in some fashion. We can actually demonstrate that that's the case if we do one thing that we didn't do, and that's we didn't save off the category label, and that would be useful for us to do. So, nope, hide that. When we do the category label, when we're done creating that, let's go ahead and say category node.label equals category label. Awesome. And then up in our filter function, we can just spit out whatever the label says, just as a test. So turbine.shell.writeline, checking node, and that's tree node.label get text. And this is just for testing purposes. So it's going to not be very efficient. Dumping that much information to the console is laggy. Okay. So, what do we see? We see, we can do this actually one step better. Checking nodes, local space equals that. If the tree node dot is category, then space equals that. And then we'll go ahead and do the space as well. Just make it a little bit obvious what's going on here. There we go. So we can see if we scroll back through here, the last thing we got was crafting, and then we went through and we saw different crafting items, including the Iron Garrison resource token that we have. I don't know why I have 6 of those. Oh, probably resource instances and universal ingredient packs. And then we go into currency and we check each of those in turn. So that's a demonstrable depth first search where we descend through as many of the levels of leaves as we can, then we iterate through that level, and then we backtrack and go to the next leaf one level above. So with that, each time we hit a category, we can play funny games. So, check to hide when there's nothing visible underneath. We can manually check them ourselves by calling the filter function. So, downside, by default, this is going to result in a fair amount of extra work. But the upside is we could just save off the result in the tree node itself. So the tree node, if there's a result, can just return it. So if this is a category, then we can say local category nodes equals tree node get child nodes, and then iterate through them, right? So we have a count, so we can do for I equals 1 category nodes get count, I think. Yep. Do, and then end. And we can go ahead and say local child, or yeah, item node equals category nodes get of that I. This is how you iterate through them, and then local item node filtered, and we'll say is item node filtered equals, and we're just going to call, we're going to recurse into that function with the item node. And we want to save off if any of them are visible. So local, I don't know, visible child count or something. In fact, do we need a local variable for this? Or could we just say item node dot is node filtered equals that? And then if not that, then we actually, I think we want to separate out the functionality here. I don't think we actually want to recurse. So what I'm going to do is make a function. Instead of the tree view filter function, this is just going to be an wallet item filter function. It's going to take a tree node, just like before, but it's only going to have this logic here. So item filter function, that, and then if it is not a category, by definition, the category has already populated this up. We can return item node, tree node dot is node filtered. We can just return that. So if it is not filtered, then the visible child count can equal the visible child count plus 1. And then instead of returning false, we can just say we want it to be visible child count equals 0. That is, if it's equal to 0, we want it to be hidden, true. If it's not equal to 0, we do not want it to be hidden, false. So, if it is a child of a category node, We will iterate through each of one of them. We will call the filter function on items. We'll go through all of this logic that we already did. That gets saved off as an attribute of that. And then later when we're called with that same tree node, we're going to go ahead and just say it's not a category, therefore we already have the isNode filtered. Maybe. Let's go ahead and document this. Filter for non-category items in the tree view. So that's still tree node, true if it should be, false if it should not. Okay, cool. Let's see how badly I've messed this up. Okay, so if we search for, I mean, we can still see that everything seems to be there that should be there. If we search for enchantment, oh, look at those categories going away. If we search for token, we can see coin went away, but these other ones are still there. Yes. Okay. Did we have to do what we just did? No, of course not. We could have just calculated twice the visibility. It's not that complicated of a thing. But because each of these does include a string pattern, string.find, and various other checks, and could get more complicated over time, I think it's nicer just to go ahead and accept we are doing a depth first search through the tree, so we can save off the value that we calculate in order to know if the category should be hidden, and then just return that super easy. So either we're a category or we've already had it calculated, we can just return. So we can take advantage of the fact that we can call our own logic to pre-calculate that, so the categories can know during the filter process whether they should be visible. I don't know if there's a better way to do this other than that, but I think this is pretty straightforward, hopefully. So we have a filter function that lets us filter out things that are not in our wallet, so that this is a consistent view between the two windows. In fact, if I search for token and search for token, there we go, that's consistent. We filter out old things, we filter out things that are not in our wallet. We could then later on toggle those filters on and off. If something is being searched for, we only show things that match that with a case-insensitive search. My apologies for German and French. I don't know how badly that will mess up with things like essets and accents, but fingers crossed it doesn't do bad things. It'll take some testing. Now, what we're not seeing here that would help us see it all together is we're not seeing the capacity, the count/capacity. I think that's something that we could definitely add to make this basically the same view as your wallet at that point. Possibly slightly more effective because you'd be able to link from here into chat by control right clicking. Okay, so visually, we still need the double plus, double minus, and plus and minus icons to show the expanded state. If we wanted to be really fancy, we could save off the expanded state into a save file and then restore it when we load back in. So if you always had everything collapsed except taxidermy, that could be something we could remember. I think dtracker does try to do that. So that should be possible. Awesome. So visually, though, I'm less concerned about that than the actual hooking this up into TitanBar, because right now it's very pretty to have a substitute wallet window, but what we really want to do is be able to have one of these arbitrary tokens show up on TitanBar. And for that, we're probably going to still need to make some code changes. But we're getting really close to what we need here. Yeah, we've got the item ID, we've got the image ID, or can get it from that item instantiation that we've got going. So I think we're really close to be able to do set an arbitrary item here up. Now, one thing I haven't really enjoyed is on the old one, you have to click into the token, and then on that window, choose where it is, and then hit save, and then you come back to here, and then that does it. I think I'd rather just make this window wider, and on each row, just have some sort of probably a radio button that says where is this, on the bar, on bar, or tooltip, or hidden. And then for each one of them, you could just change that here without going to a separate window. I like that. And then the only exception to that would be the LOTRO points, which does have the set the default value. And that could also be done in situ, or it could be done with a separate window. So that's coming. Okay. Well, I may have missed saying it, but yeah, if you had any last minute questions, comments, concerns, now's a great time to get them into chat for us to look at now, or we'll hopefully get to them next week. But in the meantime, let's go look at our source control and see what things we might need to commit. So we have the initial auto-generated files for wallet items. Auto-generated by cube, TitanBar, wallet items generator tool at blah. Cool. Now, downside, that does need to be rerun periodically to pick up new items in the wallet, which I'm not a fan of because part of this whole point was the idea of adding things to TitanBar without needing to update a list like this. Is a list like this useful? It is only useful, and we may make a lot of changes. It's only useful in that we can show things in this window that are not in your wallet. We're not currently doing that, but we can. If we're resigned to only showing things that are in your wallet, then it's the organization aspect of it. Being able to show things in the different categories. I really like that. So for now, maybe we might just deal with that. However, I think the file that does it is a single C# file, so I might just bundle that into, I don't know, the patch file somehow, so anyone could do it if they wanted to. As long as they had the LOTRO companion files, they could rerun it and generate the updated files. That might be a thing. Let's go ahead and make a note on that. There we go. To do. Figure out how to include the C# file for generating the auto-generated files. Just add it to the data directory. Yeah, that's a problem for later. Okay, let's come back in here. So we are going to go ahead and add those auto-generated files. That's English, French, and German. Now, at no point do we actually use the English, French, and German names for the items. We just get that from the game itself. These are just here for ease of use. If you're looking for a thing, you can find Durin's gold coin of spirit without knowing what the item number is. Or vice versa. If you have Durin's gold coin of spirit, you can say, oh, that's item whatever. Or if, similarly, someone has a problem with a silverfish in German, you might have a chance of finding it. Okay, so commit those. Nope. Well, main import auto-generated files. Having trouble spelling today. So we're going to include that and include this. And that's just the new data dir and the import statements. And then we can go ahead and include this as well. Let's take a look at that in Okay, so we can see we deleted 2 comment lines, the legend, and switched from magic numbers to enumerations. If the locale is French, then it's French. If it's German, it's German. Makes it so much easier to know that that is correct. Awesome. Swapped magic numbers to turbine enumerations. To do file changes. And finally, save off the lowercase filter so we own. Yeah, I didn't actually use that in the other place. Let's go ahead and do that real fast. In the filter function. Filter text equals that, but we can just use the lower text, which is already streamed out lower of that. Don't even need to declare that global variable then. Hey, is this used anywhere else? Our representation window does it too. It looks like it is different. So, cool. So, filter, we set that. So we're going to save off that lower text, and we are going to use it in place of there. Filter, so we save off the lowercase filter instead of calculating it on the fly. So that is an isolated commit. I like those. Makes the larger nonsense a little bit easier to understand. Okay, so the big thing is added initial tree view implementation. Hid list box is hidden for now, but not removed. Okay. You know, we're in a thing called better currencies, but it might actually make more sense to branch off of that until this UI revamp is resolved, because the better currencies was pretty stable, and this is going to be pretty unstable. So we're going to go ahead and, before we start making that change, stash that, commit me. Okay. And repository get flows start feature off of better currencies, and this is wallet window map tree view. So we're going to start that. Cool. Now we're going to go ahead and bring that back in and take the text that we just wrote. I wasn't sure if it would save it, so I removed it and brought it back. This box is hidden for now, but not removed. Cool. So that gives us a place to put it, and we're going to go ahead and push that out so the branch exists elsewhere as well. And we can go back to the better currencies where we were if we needed to. So we could come on over here and reload this. And we're back at what it was. Except there's a problem. Line 90. Of course. Didn't actually initialize it to anything sensible. There we go. So this is still there. It makes it very easy for us to ship a partial release if we had to go back and say, what were we doing? Yeah. So let's fix that. And we're going to go ahead and initialized lower text. And we are going to want that in our other branch. So we're going to merge that into that. There we go. That change is available for both of them. Cool. So we go ahead and reload, and we are back in the new system. Cool. All right, so that's where we're at. This is a larger step in the whole system because this is where we start giving the player a lot more control, where they can just add anything. And so we're probably going to run into a number of obstacles that I haven't even thought about yet. But that's a problem for a future stream. All right, I don't see any last minute questions in chat, so that is everything we're going to cover today. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins. I do hope to see you here next week, and until then, keep plugging along. All right, bye-bye now.